a novel market-based solution to ending homelessness in Baltimore. As shown throughout The Wire, Baltimore has a huge problem with homelessness. This is a multifaceted issue with negative health effects, social effects, and economic effects. No one wants anyone else to be homeless, whether it's out of pure compassion, wanting to improve public health, or for economic reasons like wanting to attract more people to a city's downtown core. And while people might like the idea of eradicating homelessness, there are more vacant properties in Baltimore than there are homeless people. The issue of homelessness in Baltimore is explored throughout The Wire, and personally I think that the best portrayal is presented in the 5th season, notably in the 6th episode and the 9th episode. A housing-first approach has been shown to solve many of the health-related issues with homelessness. In the United States, simply going from not having a consistent, safe shelter to sleep in to having one reduces healthcare costs by 59%, emergency department costs by 61%, and inpatient hospitalizations by 77% for the homeless population. Therefore, by solving the shelter problem of homelessness alone, we can make a massive impact on population health outcomes. These are some statistics that I found pretty staggering. 33% of ER visits are by the homeless, with an average cost per person of $18,500 a year, and 80% of these cases are preventable. Age-adjusted death rates of homeless people are 4 times those of the general U.S. population. And finally, the scariest statistic is that homeless people die 30 years earlier than the general population. This is something that we just have to solve. The history of homelessness in Baltimore goes back to the 1800s. The first sign of a social commitment to helping the homeless of Baltimore was when the Helping Up Mission, an organization that survives to this day, was founded there in 1885 as an emergency overnight shelter. The Johns Hopkins Hospital opened its doors in East Baltimore in 1889, a location strategically chosen with the intention of helping the poor, and has been a major benefactor in providing healthcare to the homeless of Baltimore, providing $75 million in uncompensated care in 2019. Baltimore's homelessness trajectory has inversely followed its economic trajectory. As we see a worsening in the economic conditions of Baltimore, we also see a worsening in the homelessness problem. Baltimore's population and economic success peaked around the year 1950 when the population was nearly 1 million people, and both variables have dropped significantly to the point where the population is only 620,000 today, with a staggering childhood poverty rate of 37%. This transformation has led to a consistent oversupply of vacant properties, a common thread throughout the Rust Belt of the United States since the decline of industrial manufacturing there. On a given night in Baltimore, 2,669 people experienced homelessness, yet there are consistently 16,000 or more vacant properties in the city. This means that for every homeless person, there are 6 vacant properties. Here's a graph showing the number of vacant buildings by notice year in Baltimore. As you can see, the numbers still keep going up year after year. Baltimore has a myriad of organizations that help the homeless with a variety of issues. Some of these organizations include Healthcare for the Homeless, Project Place, Baltimore Outreach Services, Our Daily Bread, and the Baltimore Rescue Mission. These organizations provide a variety of essential services ranging from overnight shelter to healthcare to food to job training. The strengths of these organizations and the current approaches are that they are effective at taking care of a significant amount of the homeless problem of Baltimore. They're holistic in that there are solutions not just for the fact that homeless people don't have shelter, but they go a lot further than that, helping them with other important aspects of their lives such as healthcare, food, and job training. Another strength is that they are genuinely compassionate endeavors that were created to help the homeless people instead of appeasing a political facade of help, which is sometimes seen elsewhere. These are truly amazing workers and volunteers who are there to genuinely help people and aren't just there to make themselves look or feel good. They really care. Along with their caring nature, these experienced employees and volunteers can also successfully scale programs that help the homeless when the money is there to scale them. But it isn't always there. In saying that, some of the weaknesses of the current approaches include federal funding for housing relative to need being on a decreasing trend since the mid-2000s. Baltimore just doesn't get the same money it used to relative to the population and relative to the economic circumstances for housing. Another weakness is that not all of these organizations have the financial or volunteer support they need to fund their rightfully ambitious goals. A final weakness is that they are primarily focused on and rely on distributive solutions, like one group or individual giving money to another, missing opportunities that are beneficial to all the groups involved. This makes them relatively limited in the impact they can make because it requires giving scarce resources without a large benefit for the side that initially gives a resource, besides feeling good, which is a hard sell for a lot of people. This doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. The stakeholders for homelessness in Baltimore include the homeless residents of Baltimore, intertwined with local government, local business, non-homeless residents of Baltimore, and hospitals and healthcare services. These stakeholder groups represent the people with the greatest interest in solving the homelessness problem in Baltimore, and they are often the people who also see firsthand what homelessness is doing to people in Baltimore. The first stakeholder group I will discuss are the homeless people of Baltimore themselves. Through secondary market research, I interviewed a staff at a low-income HIV patient clinic at Johns Hopkins East Baltimore Clinic, all of whom frequently serve homeless people. They reported that common wants and needs of the homeless people that they see are often safe shelter, food or access to food banks. They want access to medications, access to medical care. They want to feel empowered to ask for things like health labs. They want social rapport with healthcare providers and social workers. Having a support network is very important to them. They also want access to training or education in order to improve their lives. Another thing that's important to them is a sense of achievement. They want someone to be their cheerleader and someone they can tell their milestones to. For example, I've been sober for 3 weeks now, or I applied for a new job. These might not seem like the biggest wins to people who aren't homeless, but you have to remember that these people are fighting every day to survive. They have to think about getting food, getting shelter for the night, and even who they're going to talk to next. These people are often shut out of social circles, and that makes it very, very difficult to do things that people might even find very simple in other walks of life. The next stakeholder group I interviewed were non-homeless residents of Baltimore. Here are some selections of quotes from the stakeholder group. I hate that there's not enough being done about the homeless problem here. It doesn't make sense. I feel so bad for them, especially the kids. No one deserves to grow up that way. I don't want homeless people coming up to me asking for money or just generally harassing me. It's so annoying. I would pay more taxes for the city to build new public housing if they would make homeless people actually live in them. I can't stand walking around and getting stopped or yelled at by homeless people, having to walk over them, and having them come out to my car. My fear is that unless it's mandated for them to live in the houses, it won't even stop. In conclusion, their wants and needs are that they want homeless people off the streets. They also want homeless people to stop soliciting them, and they want homeless people out of the nice areas of the city. The next stakeholder group is local businesses. Their wants and needs included a competent, diverse pool of people to hire from, a nice-looking city that doesn't have people on the streets to attract more employers and customers, competitive tax rates, and government efficiency and accountability with funding, especially with housing funding. From the business owners I talked to, it seemed that they didn't really trust the city or the state to spend the right money in the right places when it came to homeless housing. Here's some of what they said. Baltimore has been held back for a long time because it has so many homeless people and its reputation for that. Big companies don't want to put offices somewhere where they have to constantly see the sad state of people on the streets. It doesn't help that Baltimore's taxes are insane as it is. I would hire homeless people if they presented themselves as well as anyone else. And I know that they need help with that. But knowing they're homeless wouldn't affect my hiring decision. I'd actually respect their effort. We need to get people off the streets and into work. I've been thinking about this for a long time. Can't see an end to it, and it's just something we have to live with. The city is too corrupt to fix it anyways. Seems like all the money that we get to try to get homeless people off the street just disappears into the bureaucracy. The next stakeholder groups were hospital and healthcare services and local government. Hospital and healthcare services wanted to stop the use of the ED as a primary care office and to reduce free or uncovered emergency care. They also wanted to reduce acute cases that could have been easily prevented with primary care. If you can recall from an earlier slide, 80% of the cases of homeless people in the ED were preventable. The healthcare providers I spoke with talked about an upstream approach instead of a band-aid approach. This can be applied not only to healthcare services, but to a myriad of problems that homeless people face. This means stopping problems before they start instead of trying to solve them after the fact. Finally, the main needs of the local government are to develop a better public perception. They want more funding, they want to attract businesses to the city, and they want to help all residents survive and thrive. The common wants and needs of all of the stakeholders combined were that they want homeless people to become empowered to reach independence. They want homeless people off the streets. They want to treat problems of homelessness before they become bigger issues. They want to see tax money put to good use, and they want to see a decrease in begging or the need to do so. The gaps in the current approach and the current solutions to homelessness in Baltimore are that activities that lead to independence are difficult to complete when you don't have shelter. For the homeless people who seek help, options for shelter are sometimes available, but there's very little of a pull effect for those not seeking it. Culturally, the Band-Aid approach is more prevalent in the United States than a proactive approach, not just in regard to homelessness, but in regard to a lot of different areas. Tax money collected ends up in inefficient bureaucracy too often in Baltimore, and you can't stop begging without solving the reason behind it. My vision for a solution to this is the Helping Hands Tax Credit, which stands for Helping Homeless American Neighbors Develop Self-Sufficiency. This is a tax credit program that lets homeowners, landowners, and commercial property owners pay zero taxes or other government fees on their home, land, or commercial property when they allow homeless people to live there for free, and it will be actively promoted toward owners of vacant homes, land, and properties. The basic premise of the tax credit is that in exchange for helping a homeless person by providing your shelter to them, you'll save the city and the state a lot of money in providing services to the homeless. The key program value propositions are that this has the potential to eliminate homelessness. It requires zero funding to get off the ground. It does not require a forced redistribution of anything, so it doesn't need to take resources from other programs or from individuals who do not support it. It's a win-win-win proposition for all sides, reducing homelessness, taxes, and cost burdens. And it incentivizes people to take action with clear, measurable, immediately traceable results instead of just asking for them to take action out of compassion. The program outcomes to be measured, and the questions surrounding those are, how many people are no longer homeless due to this program? Is the self-reported health of these formerly homeless people improving? And what portion of participants get a job after participating in the program? These outcomes each have a unique threshold for success. The business plan is as follows. Servicing a homeless person in a given area currently costs the government a certain amount per year. But the current government property tax and fee revenue currently generates an amount that is actually less than servicing a homeless person in the given area. For example, an estimated public service and healthcare cost of a homeless person in the United States is $18,500 a year. And property taxes for an individual are often a lot lower than that in most places. So, by eliminating both the revenue and the cost from the property taxes that flow into the government, you can actually generate a surplus through the cost savings of not having to service those homeless people, while at the same time, the homeless people get a home and the property owner saves money on taxes. It's really a win-win-win situation. If this works out, then it will generate surplus through that differential for the government, and it'll push for greater adoption to further increase the surplus. So it actually becomes incredibly beneficial for them to put people in homes from a budgetary standpoint. So in the end, what this does is actually creates a pull effect where homeless people get pulled into homes, so everyone, including the homeowners and the government, actually save money while the homeless person gets a place to live. This is great because it breaks the cycle of homelessness, and then some participants even get back on their feet. So then the property owners will have to look for a new tenant so that they can keep getting that massive property tax and fee break every single year. There are several possible ways to organize the implementation of this tax credit program. The tax credit itself will be a standard state level, county level, and city level tax credit. Its implementation will require obtaining bipartisan support to pass a bill legislating its creation by the Maryland General Assembly and Maryland Senate. It could be run with no funding and simply act as another way for people and businesses to reduce their tax burden, or it could have a marketing plan behind it to promote it and accelerate its adoption. In an ideal world, the model would be this. There would be initial marketing funding of $3 million a year, and it would be approved at a 50-50 share between the state of Maryland and the city of Baltimore. Marketing would be through radio, billboards, in-person at events, and online, targeted toward owners of vacant homes. Here's the kicker. Marketing will be outsourced to an agency chosen by the person or organization that provides shelter to the highest number of homeless people in the first 3 months that the tax credit is announced to boost the program's numbers. And conflicts of interest in that will be allowed. So just say you were a marketing agency and you wanted that contract. If you put homeless people in homes, you'll be able to get that contract. You're just going to be competing with all these people who are trying to house the homeless people to save their money on their property taxes. If that model cannot be approved, then a backup model will be that after the tax credit is approved, initial marketing will be by organic means such as social media and word of mouth. Then after the initial participants show that the program can provide benefits, a marketing budget with the process above will be established that has funding equal to half the estimated government savings. So that way, the tax credit program can kind of grow organically as more people adopt it. The final kind of last resort method that I think would still work really well is that there would be no marketing funding and this would simply operate as a standard tax credit. Since it's such a good deal that actually helps people and it's such a win-win, it might actually be able to grow organically just like that through accountants and financial advisors, tax advisors, and other people just simply looking into the tax code and saying, oh my God, I can save so much money on my property taxes by just filling this vacant property with someone who really needs to have a home. It's just sitting there not being used anyways, and I'm paying taxes on it. So if I can get someone to, live in it while also not having to pay taxes, that'd just be great for all of us. This project is actually incredibly feasible from the standpoint of all different stakeholders. For hospitals and healthcare services, this will reduce costs of providing uncompensated care. For local government, this will reduce costs of servicing the homeless and provide increased tax revenue down the line from the growth that they get from having a nicer city. For local businesses, this will increase revenue by attracting more consumers to the new cleaner city, and it'll also help them get an expanded hiring pool as people complete the program and become people who can actually go into a job and not worry about if they're going to have to sleep on the street that night. For non-homeless residents of Baltimore, this means that they'll have to pay less taxes or enjoy a cleaner city, which will boost property value and their job opportunities. And lastly, for the most important stakeholder, the homeless residents of Baltimore themselves, they get a place to live to start becoming healthier and more independent. And that's the whole goal of this program. The character in The Wire that this reminds me of most is actually Dookie. So he doesn't have much to begin with, but after he is given help by his teacher and his friends, he takes care of his friend Michael's younger brother, Bug, which is a paid gig, but is also a nice gesture, something that he didn't have to take on. This shows that doing good and making money are not mutually exclusive. The idea of the Helping Hands tax credit is for property owners to step in to help the homeless, not just out of compassion, but because they can save money from it too. This is a proposition that I can see Dookie taking on if he did end up owning a house in Baltimore. Although he takes advantage of present in the end, he showed reciprocity for his generous help when he stops by the school to give him a gift for helping him out. While providing a place to live for the homeless is an ambitious endeavor on its own, it'd be a really nice cherry on top if even one of the homeless people in the program was able to reciprocate and take part in the program as a property owner after becoming successful themselves. If we could achieve this, we could turn the homelessness cycle and the poverty cycle into a social mobility cycle. Thank you.